It's the boy, Bubba Lutz, coming through. Hella clutch, flawless, can't be touched. It's your boy, Bubba Lutz. Yeah, I need that hot take. I need the truth and everything that is not fake. So tell me who's the goal.
Welcome back, Bubba Bunch, to another edition of the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. This is episode 266, and here we are at the end of the Cowboys season after a 23-17 loss to the 49ers in the first round of the NFL playoffs. Wild card weekend was kind of underwhelming outside of that Bengals and Raiders game, but this was definitely the talking point of the weekend for all the wrong reasons for the Dallas Cowboys. And I know what you're thinking. If you're listening to this, watching this right now, you know how I am. And you know how I've been critical of this team, not just this year, but ever since I really started this podcast and my entire life, basically. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the moment where I just let it all out. Because watching this game, it's just not even to the point of embarrassing. We're past that point. We're past the point of pathetic, of idiotic. We are at a level of just humorous. It is laughable to see how bad this football team is when any sort of pressure is put onto them. And sadly, this also goes with all the things that I love about this team, all the players that I love. They played bad as well. And no one played as bad as they could have that I love the most than Dak Prescott. We're going to go through many facets of this game. Ultimately, what I'm going to talk about is what I've been saying all year long as to why these problems that continued to occur week in and week out that weren't fixed by the Cowboys, they weren't fixed by Jerry Jones, by Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore. None of these people in charge, these officials of this team, decided to do anything about it. And they went into this game unprepared. And I think that's an understatement, to say the least, because San Francisco was considered more of a favorite in this game by like the weekend or the tail end of the week, going into this game. And I couldn't have agreed more when it came to that, because really the 49ers have the experience. The 49ers had that playoff mentality already because they've played in so many playoff games in prior years. Not so many, but they've had plenty under their belt. More than the Cowboys. They've made it farther than the Cowboys. They've beat better teams than the Cowboys. Why wouldn't they be able to beat a Cowboys team that is falling under the pressure every single opportunity that they have to do so? And I look at all these games with the Denver Broncos, the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Arizona Cardinals, where these coaches are just completely outsmarting Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore. It's not even funny at that point to think that these coaches are so bad at their job, and the lack of preparation, the lack of awareness to figure out what's best for this team, it showed on Sunday like it did in the previous weeks with the Cowboys losses. They only have 5 losses in the regular season, yet they all happen the same way. Outsmarted, outplayed, undisciplined, unaware of their surroundings, bad play all around, just looked lost out there. And a lot of those games, like the Raiders game and the Chiefs game, or Arizona as well, where everybody has your eyes or has their eyes on you. Everybody has the focus on the Dallas Cowboys of like, hey, if they can win this football game, this means a lot to this organization that maybe the tough times are over and they are legit this year. Every single one of those opportunities, you went into Arrowhead and you shit the bed offensively. You had Arizona beat you at home and Kyler Murray stays undefeated at AT&T Stadium. Now you add this game to the list because the 49ers embarrassed you in a home playoff game. They embarrassed you. They were so close to making this 17-0, but somehow your defense just hung on just a little bit longer. But your offense, who only scored 7 points in the first half, only 10 points in the second half. Considering that this was one of the best offenses in all of football, they led the league in points per game basically the entire season with over 29. They can't even score 20. I said well, I didn't say in this preview because I didn't do one last week, but I said going into this game that they needed to score at least 30. They needed to in order to have a chance in the football game, because I guaranteed that San Francisco would score over 30. Luckily, your defense only gave up 23 points because they only scored a touchdown in the second half. Props to that defense. And guess what? That's the same thing we've been saying all year long. Props to this defense for hanging on. But what about this offense? We got to talk about how concerning this offense is. And yes, I saw some different looks from Kellen Moore as far as adding Terrence Steele to that diamond package, to that diamond formation in the backfield. Using a little bit more of Cedric Wilson, getting Dalton Schultz involved. However, none of it mattered because you had such a belief in that offensive line and you relied heavily on that offensive line to get it done, and yet you couldn't win the battles. You couldn't win the battles without their best defensive player on the field for most of this game. Nick Bosa goes out of that game, like right at the tail end of the first half. He then doesn't play the rest of the second half, and yet you couldn't make a difference offensively. You had a garbage time touchdown, and that's all you had to show for it. How are you going to consider yourselves one of the best teams and a legit contender in the NFL if you can't even score more than a touchdown in the second half of a playoff home game? And don't even get me started with the penalties, because really, that's what a lot of people are going to take out of this game. 14 penalties for 89 yards. This goes to show you how ridiculously bad Mike McCarthy is at his job. This man does absolutely nothing for this football team, and I am still surprised that on January 17th at 9:03 p.m. that he still has a fucking job. How this man still has a job after bamboozling Jerry Jones into a job 2 years ago. He lied in his interview process saying that I've watched all the film, I've watched the Cowboys, I know every single thing about this team. I know analytics now. Ooh, I'm going to throw in all these jibber jabber words and say I know football now. Had a miserable 2020 season where he literally had to fire everybody he brought in because they were so bad at their job as well. And Jerry said, I'm going to give you a second chance, but I'm going to get involved in this hiring process. And that's why I want Dan Quinn. For some reason, well, it's a coincidence that the only guy that Mike McCarthy didn't bring in is the guy that actually did well with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn deserves this head coaching job because if he doesn't get the job in Dallas, he's definitely leaving to go into Denver. He's definitely going to Minnesota. He's leaving the Cowboys for definitely a better opportunity because he's seen how much turmoil is in this organization and how he's not going to get anything done. Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore deserve to be fired. Kellen, if you want to become a head coach somewhere else like in Jacksonville or in Minnesota, go right ahead. We ain't going to stop you. Because guess what? You took a high-octane, explosive, talented offense and said, how can I make this worse? You don't know how to play call, let alone run an offense, let alone you'll know how to run a NFL team. How is he expected to run an entire organization as the head coach when he can't even do his own job right in Dallas right now? And Mike, congratulations. You find your way back into the league. You get hired by the Dallas Cowboys. You lied your way through the process. You basically fugazied your way into 2 seasons with this team, and you wasted another season of great talent. Here we are, folks. Here we are with another disappointing season with the Dallas Cowboys, but I think this one is more disappointing than previous years. The way that this team acts is so immature and really ignorant, to say the least. I don't know what goes on in this locker room, but the entire year, a lot of these players have gone out and said publicly that this is a different group of guys, that this year's team is special. And for so many weeks, I believed this team because I saw the play on the field of what it could be and what they played at times. At times, this offense did look like the best offense in football. At times, this defense could create a turnover in the snap of a finger, right? But when it mattered the most, when the chips were all laid out on the table and everything was on the line against the Chiefs, against the Raiders, against the Cardinals, and now against the 49ers, how did you react? How did you take a punch to the face and bounce back? You did it. You folded under the pressure. You folded. You looked terrible. You embarrassed yourself. And here you are complaining once again, like you did after the Cardinals game, that the referees ruined your chances of winning this football game. Dak Prescott, who I adore for his maturity, his leadership, and just the overall presence he has with this team. After the game, when they ask him about the fans throwing bottles at the players and evidently throwing bottles and drinks at the refs once they were leaving the field, he was quick to say that throwing these bottles at players was unacceptable, and it showed lack of character. Yet, when it came down to the refs, he said, credit to them. Credit to the fans for throwing stuff at the refs who just officiated the game as they saw it. Yes, they did miss calls. Yes, they made some bad calls. When have you ever seen a game in the NFL to where every single play, every single call that the referees made was perfect? You know that the refs are bad this year. You know that the refs are going to be a problem. So what do you tell your guys if you're Mike McCarthy? You tell them that don't leave it in the hands of the referees. Don't leave it to their decisions to decide your fate this season. And that's exactly what you did. In the first defensive play, Randy Gregory jumps offsides for a neutral zone infraction. How do you want to start off this game? How do you want to start off your playoff season with a penalty that gives 5 yards free to San Francisco, who adores to run the ball on first down? As the game progressed, did you get any better at stopping those really dumb mistakes and undisciplined plays by not jumping off sides, by not false starting, by not holding? You didn't. You only got worse as the game went along. And the body language. When CeeDee Lamb gets a big play down the field and he looks back and he sees that there's a penalty for holding on Connor Williams for the 100th time this year, and you just see CeeDee Lamb just throw his hands in the air and just like look down and say, "Oh man, not again." What body language, what tone do you want to set for your team by in the first quarter of this game, you already are sighing and just thinking, oh my God, nothing's going right. It's the first quarter of a 60-minute football game in the playoffs at home, and you're only down by 2 possessions. Should you give up? Should you really give up? No. Let's go back to the Dak Prescott thing. A man of that maturity and that leadership lowered his level to such a disgraceful act by Dak Prescott, something uncharacteristic of him, to say that throwing bottles at officials and to basically bombard them with bullying and hate, all because your team couldn't get it done? How is it their fault that you had 14 penalties? How is it their fault that you're jumping off sides, that you're holding Connor Williams, that you're missing throws? Dak Prescott threw less than 60% completion percentage this game. His passer rating was 27. Is that the fault of the refs? Yes or no question. There's clear answers to this. And yet the Cowboys look in the mirror and they say, it's the ref's fault. That's not my fault. That's not just what you see in the players. That shadows into what the coaches are doing. If your coaches are going to go out there and say the same exact thing, saying that the refs were the problem, you already set yourself up for failure. You don't take accountability for your actions. Dak Prescott didn't take accountability for his actions. He played bad, and there is no excuse for how he played. There is nothing that he can say otherwise than I played bad. I can't defend Dak right now. I really can't. He played bad. He made some bad decisions. He didn't step up. He didn't step up to the plate to when the team needed him the most, to make a play downfield, to say, we're going to get aggressive and I'm going to take care of this football game. Dak Prescott doesn't have that ability. And that's a sad truth to say as a Cowboys fan. He doesn't have the ability to take over a game. Tom Brady can. Aaron Rodgers can. Russell Wilson can. Guys like this, will take accountability and say, none of us have gotten anything right today, I will change that. And at the end of the day, when you could have clearly and simply said, it's on me, I have to be better, I'm sorry. You say, credit to them for throwing bottles at the officials. Unacceptable, embarrassing, and pathetic. It truly is pathetic to be a Cowboys fan right now. They should be disgraced. They should be embarrassed. It's just all bad, man. All bad. None of it made sense. And this is where we go into the long-term issue of the Dallas Cowboys. When we talk about Tony Pollard, every time we touched the football, he did something good. Yet Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore decided that it was best for this football team to have a injured Ezekiel Elliott with a partially torn PCL that he's had for months play more snaps and have the ball more often than Tony Pollard at full strength. Ezekiel Elliott had 31 yards on 12 carries. As I look at the stat sheet, I see Dalton Schultz is the leading receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Did you pay Amari Cooper $100 million to only have 6 receptions for 64 yards? He had that big play that was like 47 yards. So outside of that, he only had 20 yards for the rest of the game. CeeDee Lamb, your great stud first-round pick from a few years ago, and arguably the wide receiver one on this team, has 1 reception for 21 yards. He was only targeted 5 times. Tony Pollard got the ball 4 times. Why is my computer making noise? You had such a bad game plan going in, and you played scared. You played complacent, and even then, with a complacent vanilla offense like you've been doing for the last 2 months, you couldn't even execute that properly. While San Francisco, who has been doing great things all year, stuck to their guns, and you knew exactly what they were going to do. Give the ball to Elijah Mitchell, 27 carries. 27 carries for 96 yards. Deebo Samuel, 10 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel also had 3 receptions for 38 yards. Congratulations, you stopped George Kittle to 1 reception. But you also gave up Brandon Ayuk 5 receptions, 66 yards. Trevon Diggs got beat all day long. Trevon Diggs is overrated. If you throw a double move his direction, he will bite, and he will fail. Micah Parsons was struggling with the post-COVID symptoms, had bad stamina, and you can't really blame him for that, but he still went out there and played hard. I can't say that for a lot of other guys. But here we are, months after the initial part of the season, to where you realized what your problems were. Your problems were your health on your offensive line. Tyron Smith can't stay healthy, and Terrence Steele is a bum. Connor Williams is absolutely awful and got benched because he had so many penalties, and he's not strong enough. Guess what happened in this game? Connor Williams had too many penalties, and he wasn't strong enough to keep up. Eric Armstead made him look like a bum, which he is. Your offense is mid. It's so mid. At some point, you got to force the ball to your best players, and you have to make them step up. CeeDee Lamb did not step up. Amari Cooper did not step up. This defense did all it could, but with Jimmy Garoppolo looking better than Dak Prescott, unacceptable. To be honest, I didn't want Kevin on this podcast because I was just going to go on a rant. I was truly just going to go on a rant for like about 40 minutes, and it wouldn't be fair to him because I would just talked over him. I need to get all this frustration out because it's truly unbelievable to think that we are in the same position that we were 4 years ago with Jason Garrett. It's the same exact issue, yet more talent is being wasted. This team is the laughingstock of the NFL, and they deserve every single bit of disgrace toward them right now. I don't wish them anything bad. I don't wish them any, honestly, I don't want to say anything bad about this team on a personal level. I'm just basing it off their play. But I will talk about Mike McCarthy being one of the most ignorant coaches that I've ever seen. His clock management, his game time decisions, just overall decision making. He's got an IQ of a potato. I don't understand how this man still has a job right now. With Brian Flores out there. With Dan Quinn about to leave. And yet, in the back of my mind, I still think that he will be there next year. And that Kellen Moore, if Mike McCarthy isn't there, becomes the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. If Kellen Moore becomes the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year, I promise you guys, I will not cheer for the Cowboys next year. And that is on God. I swear on my livelihood that I will not cheer for this team next year if Kellen Moore is the coach. The man can't run an offense. How is he expected to run a team? So here we are at the end of the year to where the Cowboys once again embarrass all of us, disappoint us, and we think, oh, maybe next year. What's next for this team? What's next for this team is that you fire Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore immediately. You let them go. You let them go anywhere. They can go to the Giants. They can go to the Eagles. They can go to the Washington football team. It doesn't matter. Let them go anywhere else than your organization. Because Mike McCarthy is laughable as a head coach. He truly is. John Fossil, you can go to. You got all cute with your punts and shit like that. That's cool. Congratulations. You got a fake done in the playoffs. And then what happened afterwards? For another minute, you couldn't figure out whether you wanted the real offense or the punting unit out there. So then you wasted a time. No, you didn't even waste a timeout. You got to delay a game. Another stupid penalty. 14 penalties. A franchise record. It is so stupid. It is so stupid to play this bad. So stupid. I can't believe. I didn't even watch the full game. After the fake punt, they get the reception, and then they get a delayed game. I turned it off. I didn't care if they were making a comeback. It's the same old Cowboys. Okay? And you can say, oh, well, the ref bumped into Dak Prescott, and why are you running a QB sneak in the middle of the field with no timeouts? The one time you actually want to use Dak Prescott's legs is in the worst possible time in a game. This team, man, just doesn't understand what it takes to win the big one. It's too big of a moment. They are so terrified of making a mistake, and they are so just in their heads. It's sad. It truly is sad to see Dak not wanting to make a mistake, and yet he makes the mistake. Going into this season, you needed to improve the offensive line, and you didn't do anything about it. You needed help up front for the pass rush, and you needed linebackers because Micah Parsons can't do everything. You believed in Lane Vander Esch. That's the problem with this football team, is that they believe in guys like Lane Vander Esch. They believe in guys like Anthony Brown. They believe in guys like Connor Williams, who are not even competent enough to be starters in the NFL. Yet they didn't do anything about it. So Jerry Jones, you can come out and say that this is very disappointing. You expected more out of this team. Well, guess what? You're the owner. So you can make the changes in order for this to be different. You accepted the fact that Connor Williams was your left guard, knowing that he had too many penalties to give up and he wasn't strong enough to keep up with some of the most elite guys as far as pass rushers or interior linemen in the NFL. And you said, that's fine. We're not going to make any changes. We like our guys. You made the decision all year long that Anthony Brown was going to be your second best corner, knowing that he has problems all around his game. And through all of these games to where you had all the pass interference calls, all the holding calls that cost them games, you still stuck with him. You decided that Greg Zuerlein was going to be the best kicker possible for this team, knowing that Kai Forbath, who was perfect for you 2 years ago, is sitting on the couch waiting for a call. And you decided to stick with Greg Zuerlein, who lost you multiple games and could have gotten you a first-round bye. That's on you. You're the one that hired Mike McCarthy within an hour of an interview. You're the one that looked at this offense all year long and decided it's going to be fine for the playoffs. You made those decisions. Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore, you are in the same boat. You looked at this football team and you said they're going to be fine. And you got absolutely throttled. This score doesn't show how dominant the 49ers were in this football game. Made Jimmy Garoppolo look like a Super Bowl winning quarterback and made this running game look like the greatest thing on earth. You let that happen. And now you got to reap the consequences. Mike, Kellen, good luck on your future endeavors. But I want you far away from Dallas as possible. I want you gone. Does that change anything? Are they going to hire Brian Flores? Probably not. Are they going to hire some mid-tier head coach and expect different results when really it's going to be the same exact thing? Yep. Because guess what? As long as Jerry Jones or anybody under the Jones family name is running this team, they will never amount to anything. This team will continue to be mediocre, to disappoint, and be considered America's team of losers. There are so many things that could be done to this team that could have made them better. Simple things like giving Tony Pollard more time, by forcing the ball to CeeDee Lamb a little bit more, by getting Amari Cooper involved a little bit more, by going out and getting a tight end better than Dalton Schultz who can't block and is afraid to get hit, by getting another cornerback to go alongside Trevon Diggs like a veteran to help him out and just become a better corner. But no, you'd stick with Trevon Diggs, who doesn't like to tackle anybody and wants to avoid contact as much as possible. You got Anthony Brown, who's just absolutely terrible. And you have one linebacker. You have one good linebacker who actually just pass rushes the entire time. And you got a defensive line that likes to jump before the snap because they looked at Trent Williams' leg and they saw a little bit of movement, so they jumped. And at the end of the day, they blame the refs on everything. Own it. Own that you lost. Take accountability for your actions, for your weaknesses and your mistakes. But for you to put up that type of performance, that terrible ass excuse of a performance for 60 straight minutes, to lose to the 49ers who barely made the playoffs, and to then blame everybody but yourselves, you should be ashamed. You should truly be ashamed of yourselves. And this is a mediocre football team. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Tell me who's your top 5 quarterbacks right now, dead or alive, huh? And how much do you care about a ring if the best player got carried by the team? Now, would you lose if it been a better draft pick?